Hey guys, I welcome you all back to my channel. In the previous episode, we were looking into the basics of Dart. I have taught you what is void, the functions, the function types, then classes and stuffs, and some basic syntaxes that are used in Dart. In this episode, we are going to look into the files that are automatically generated by the Flutter SDK. We are going to look into the purpose of these files. After that, we will be looking into the default code that was generated by Flutter SDK. Okay, so we will be seeing this code in the perspective of a person who don't have any idea about Flutter. When he sees this very first time, how he should perceive the code. So this is to give you an idea on how to see a code when you have no idea before. After that, we'll be looking to construction of Flutter right from scratch. Okay, so let's get started. The very first file that we'll be looking into is .tool. So this file is automatically generated, and sometimes you might not find this file. So if you have installed Dart plugin, then you could find this file. So this file contains JSON format of the Dart language, that is, it has a configuration of that. Okay, so you don't need to do anything about this. So this file is automatically handled by the Flutter SDK, so you got nothing to do with this. So all you need to know is this file got to do something with the Dart language. So the very next file is idea. Okay, so this idea file is handled by those who are making use of Android Studio as a IDE, people who develop the Flutter application, and some other IDEs. You don't need to mind about this file even if it's automatically generated. So in this file, okay, so even if you're using Android Studio, mostly we won't be making any modifications. Okay, so this is like it contains a XML format of your entire project. For now, it's not essential for us. We won't be making any changes in this particular folder in perspective of developing the application. So you don't need to mind about this. This folder stays passive for us as well. So very next file that you look into is Android. So this file is something very important because this provides you the platform base. Okay, so this particular file provides you a platform base for Android. This particular file provides you platform base for iOS. So what technically is this entire set of folders. Okay, so this is your base for Android application. So you'll be working mostly in the library folder here. So you could find the main.dart, that is a file displayed here. Okay, so main dot here you'll be writing a couple of Dart files based on the needs of your application. Okay, so what happens is if you are developing your application for Android environment, then your Flutter SDK will inject this particular data into this Android file. This helps you to generate Android based application APK. If you are making use of your Flutter application based on your iOS platform, then you would be finding the required files for iOS base in this folder. Okay, so iOS. So these two folders are important. If this folder is important if you are developing for iOS, if this folder is important if you are developing for Android. So this build folder is nothing but it has the logs. Okay, shows you where it has done and what. Okay, so this contains the data about the injection and stuff. Okay, so you could find that in logs. When you look into the logs, if you have previously run your code once, okay, so you could find something that your Flutter code has been injected and so on and so forth and stuff. Okay, so you would be having the logs of whatever the things you have done so far in here. Very first time when you open the log, you won't be finding much into that. Okay, since I have run this program once, I got some injections and stuffs over there. You would be finding those stuffs in build. Some people won't be having this build folder, no problem. Okay, so you'll be directly having Android and iOS folders, so it's not an issue. If you are using Android Studio and if you have some relevant plugins, you would find this. Okay, so either ways your application will run, so no need to worry if that particular folder is missing. So the library folder, as I said, this is the place where you'll be working. So this is the place, like mostly 100% of the time you'll be working here, because here is the place where you develop your application, and the programming language you make use of Dart. So the files that are created here has the Dart extension. Okay, so the main Dart is the main folder, like the root folder in which you'll be working on. So you'll be creating a couple of other Dart folders based on the requirements. Okay, so this is the folder that we'll be working. So far, these two folders are important, but it will be automatically handled by the Flutter SDK. The rest of the stuff stays passive. So this is the active folder. After that, you could see something called test. Okay, so this test initially we won't be minding, but this is a Dart file as well. So experts write the test cases in this folder in order to test their widgets or their Flutter application automatically. Since we are going the basics, we won't be looking into this. Okay, so this is something that's frequently handled by the testing peeps who really want to test some applications. Okay, so after that, we'll be having the git node. Okay, so git node is I think I have told you about the Git. It's an application that helps you to control your versions. In real time, we'll be developing our application constantly into different versions. Sometimes we might stuck with some bugs and it will be difficult for us to proceed. So at that moment, this git will help you to roll back to the previous version and restore the code from the previous version, and from there you could have some clear idea where these bugs developed and stuff. So for that, for rolling back your version, this git helps you. So for that, you have to open your git account and sync it with Android Studio in order to make use of that. For that convenience, this particular file will help you. The very next file is metadata. So this metadata folder, it contains detail about your entire application. This is automatically handled. You won't be making any changes here. Okay, so this is like the number plate of your vehicle. Okay, so something like that. I'm giving you a vague idea. Okay, so this is something like that, but it's automatically handled. You won't be caring much about this. After that, packages. So packages, again, this is automatically handled. Okay, you'll be having the data about the default package that is essential, and so you could find all those stuffs in here. We won't make any changes in here. If in case if some changes have to arrive, I will inform you. As far as I remember, we don't make any changes in here. We'll be making use of third-party plugins, obviously. So we'll be adding the third-party plugins in YAML file. Okay, so this is the place where you'll be inserting the third-party plugins. I will tell you how we do that later. Okay, so this talks about the dependencies that are required. You could see the version that is supported and things here. You could find the dependency that is already existing in here. You could find the SDK and things. Okay, so it's an YAML file, and the pubspec log file, it's like a detailed description about the dependencies and stuff that are present in the YAML file. Okay, so these two are like interlinked. Okay, but we won't be working with this log file, but we'll be working with the YAML file occasionally. It's not frequent. The very frequent file that we work in is library here. Okay, so this YAML file helps us in dependency addition and stuff. Okay, so this Flutter quiz, it's the name of the application that I have given you. If you remember the very first episode, I believe I have created a sample application for you. So in that, I create an application called Flutter quiz. That's how I name my application. So this YAML file, it contains the plugins, overall generalized plugins that we use for our application. You could see we have made use of Dart SDK, Flutter plugins, and Dart packages and stuff. So you could find something like that. Again, this is automatically handled. We won't be minding much into this. Okay, so if you are making use of Android Studio, you might find this YAML file. If you are making use of other IDEs, you may not find this file. So after that, this readme file is usually, we don't mind. If you want to give some note to other developers or the users of your application, you might do it here, but this file is not necessary. So the very essential file that we'll be working are library and YAML. YAML is occasional, library is like most frequent. So these are external library files, and it's available for those who make use of Android Studio, and these are like, you don't need even to know about these. Okay, so it happens some, it has data about some Android Kotlin and stuff. Okay, so you could find the packages folders in here. It has data about that, so you don't need to mind about this. Okay, so these are like completely handled. Okay, so for now you don't need to think about these. That's all you got to know about these default auto generated files. Okay, so after that, when we look into this auto generated code, okay, so when you look into this, when you run your application, okay, before running the application, make sure that you make use of the Android emulator. You start the Android emulator, or if you want to connect your phone and make use of your phone as the emulator, then you got to go to your settings developers option and enable USB debugging, and then connect your phone with data cable to your system. Then you could identify your phone here. Once some device here is identified, then you will be able to run this file. Now you could see that this file is running. The very default file that has been generated by the Flutter SDK is running in here. Okay, so this is the sample, default generated Flutter application. Okay, so what it does is, when you press this plus, it increments. Okay, and you have a message here that you have pushed the buttons this many times. Okay, so you could see that this got an app title. Okay, so Flutter demo homepage. Okay, very first thing what a person should do if he don't have any idea about the code written for a particular function is see what's written here and go to your code and search where you find something like that. So here you have seen you have pushed this many times. Okay, so it means that this particular widget has to deal something with this. Okay, so the screen, so you could figure out with that. And the very next thing you see counter, so with that you understand that it got to do something with this. When you add this, it counts, and since they have made use of the keyword called counter, then you could find, so now you have come here and you have found the function, the method that is essential, that is responsible for incrementing the value there. Okay, so now we have identified that. You could see here that this particular thing is adding. So if you could also play with this, what happens when we add 2 or let's say 5. Okay, so when you hot reload it, you could see the change for yourself. Okay, so I'm adding the counter. If I make use of, if I enter plus equal to 5, then it means counter equal to the that keyword counter plus 5. So I'm trying to write this in short form. In order to write it in short form, I'm writing it as plus equal to 5. So this is one short form of writing this. And if I hot reload it, okay, hot reload is a feature of Flutter. Okay, if you are making some minor changes and if you want to see that being reflected as the app proceeds, then you could hot reload it. It won't completely start your application right from base, building your Gradle, installing it and stuff. Okay, so it just imports the changes to the application. From there you can make the, you can see the changes. You could see that now we are incrementing it by 5. We have made the change just now. So if you are making this change right now, and now I said previously we had 5, now I'm adding it as 50. Now when I hot reload it, so previously the value was here in 70. Okay, now when I add, it goes in multiples of 50. So this is to give an idea how hot reload works. Okay, so it won't completely restart your file, it just imports the changes, it just injects the changes directly to your application, so you could continue in flow. Okay, so you could make use of hot reload when you are doing some minor changes to your application. If you are making some major changes like changing the state of the program, then you got to run the application completely from again, you got to build it from beginning. Okay, so that is the purpose of the hot reload. So this is the way you try to analyze your file, okay, your application, when you see it for the first time. Now we have identified where which code is responsible for displaying this text and which code is responsible for incrementing this and displaying the value in here. So very next thing we got to find is the app title. So again, it has the text Flutter demo homepage. So all we need, yeah, now we found this as well. So you could see that something called home widget, and it has some method kind of thing that passes the value, this one. Okay, so you got this idea. This is a class as well, so we are passing named argument here. I have taught you about the class in Dart basics, and I have taught you different ways of passing arguments, positional passing technique and name passing techniques and those stuffs, the previous video at the end, I guess. So you could see that. So that's why I was teaching the basics of Dart back then. And I've told you that there is a widget called text widget, which is similar to print widget, okay, print function in Dart. So you could see that here. So this text widget, again, it's like print function of Dart. Okay, so it helps you to display your text on the application interface. Okay, so like I said, in order to display the value, you have made use of symbol called dollar. Okay, so these are some of the basics that we have already learned, and based on that basics, you will be adding some more stuff to style your appearance on the application. So we'll be looking detail from right now. Okay, so very first thing I need you all to do is erase this completely. We will be building right from scratch. Okay, so as after erasing this entire application, okay, so when you try to build it along with me, you will be having a better understanding about the application. Okay, the very first thing I want to tell you is, even though I teach you along, from scratch, parallelly building it from basic, I want you to do some changes to the code that I'm typing here yourself. Okay, so that you get a good understanding when you make some random changes and see the output for yourself. So that gives you even better learning experience. So I advise you to do that. So let's get started. Okay, so I have told you in the Dart basic that the compiler enters your code from your main method. Okay, so similarly in Flutter, what you do, you write a main method. So like I said, in the basics of Dart, we are writing the main method just the same. Okay, so we call the main method using the keyword called main. Okay, so After that, in order to tell your compiler that this is a method, you make use of parenthesis, and since this method won't return anything, we make use of the type called void. So now we have written the main method. Okay, the very first thing we are going to do is we are going to try to build our own widget. Okay, so that displays some text on your application, nothing else. Okay, so we are going to just print text. In order to do that, we are going to create a class. Okay, so like I said, in Flutter everything is a widget. If you are trying to display some text, then that is a widget. Okay, so in order to build a widget, you got to create a class, and inside the class only we are going to create a widget. When you're creating a particular widget, then when you create a class for that widget, all the preparations that are necessary to create that widget has to be written within that same class itself. Okay, so now what we are going to do is, let's name our widget as my widget. Okay, so we are creating our very first widget. This is how we create a class. I have told you the basics to create the class. Okay, so every widget has a state. Okay, so there are two types of state. Okay, so state widget, a stateful widget, and stateless widget. Okay, so we sometimes make use of another class called state, which is like a generic form of stateful and stateless widget. Right now it sounds a bit confusing. Okay, I will tell you the difference between a stateful widget and stateless widget as we go further. Okay, so right now I just want to give you an idea what we basically do in Flutter. Okay, so in order to run an application, I will just teach you that right now. Then we go to the theoretical aspect, some little bit important theoretical aspect of the stateless and stateful widget for some few seconds, and then hop in back to develop a bit more elegant looking application. Okay, so right now our goal is to print a text on your application. Okay, so in order to print the text on the application, we are going to extend something called stateless widget. Okay, so extends. Okay, so extends is a keyword that is used to inherit the properties of other classes. Okay, this stateless widget is a class that is written inside the Flutter package that comes default. So in order to import that Flutter package to our application, that is our programming file, we make use of a keyword called import. Okay, so by making use of this keyword, we can import the default packages that have been provided in the Flutter SDK. So I'm going to import something called material dot. That's a dot file that is written inside the Flutter package. Okay, so in order to specifically call that file, we name the package and then provide this / and then name the file that we want to import. Okay, so this is a technique for importing the default dot files that have been written by the developers. So we are going to make use of the classes and methods that have been already written, okay, for this particular file. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, we are, like I said, we are going to import something we are going to inherit something called stateless widget that has been already written in the material dot file. Okay, so you could see that in the suggestions here, this has been already written here, written inside this package. Now we have imported that. Okay, so in order to build your widget, you got to make use of a keyword called build. Okay, so this build method is already written inside the material dot file as well, within the Flutter package. Okay, so this build method, it's of type widget. Okay, that's why we have written widget here. Since we have mentioned the type as widget, then obviously this is going to return some widget. We are returning a widget called material app. Okay, so this material app it's again a widget. Okay, so it provides you the base layout for your application in the raw format. When you execute the application, you will get an idea, and you could see an argument called context. Okay, so this context is of type build context. Okay, so this is something like you got to memorize. Okay, so these arguments are handled by Flutter automatically. We won't be passing any values to this build method. Okay, Flutter takes care of those passing and doing stuff for us, but we should make sure that we write this. Okay, if you are making use of Android Studio, then automatically these codes will be written. If you just call the method, then those other stuffs, the small typing works, would be done automatically. That's what I said. You got to take care of the major works. Okay, so now we have written something called material app. Okay, so like I said, this is a widget again present inside the material dot package. Okay, so I have told you that this is a raw layout for your application. Now inside this widget we pass an argument. Okay, so we specifically point out the name of the argument. This is named argument passing technique. Now I am passing another widget to this argument called text widget. This text widget, I am stating hello world. Now I have done that. Okay, so now what we have done so far is we have imported the default package by making use of the keyword called import, and we have created our own class. We have extended something called stateless widget that we will be talking shortly. Okay, so I'm extending the features of the stateless widget to my widget. That is, I'm just making my widget stateless by extending the stateless widget. I will tell you what is stateless widget, stateful widget, and difference between them, okay, shortly. So don't worry about that. Right now, you just understand that we are importing something called stateless widget, and then we are making use of the build method to build our application, build our widget. This is written, say, the Metadata function as well. We are just making use of that method, and this method has some arguments, and we got to write that, but it is automatically handled by the Flutter SDK. Since this is of type widget, we are returning a widget. Okay, so we are returning a widget to the build method for that to build. We are returning material app, which is a default widget that is written inside the material.package package. It helps you, it provides you a raw base for your application. Okay, inside that we are passing an argument. We are using named argument passing convention. This is a property which is present inside this widget. Okay, so we are pointing out that property and passing the widget. This widget is nothing but hello world. Okay, so once you have passed an argument, you got to make sure to add a comma here. This helps you to automatically align your code when you write like more and more lines of codes. When you try to intend it by making use of the automatic intending feature that is available, that helps you to make your code look bit more readable, so that you won't get confused when you see your own code. Right now it's so simple because all we have done so far is writing 2-3 lines. Okay, so it will be easy for us to read it right now, but when you go like 300-400 lines of codes, okay, so if your code is so congested, it will be hard for you to debug or decode some errors. Okay, so at that time it will be fatal for you. The shortcut to use auto formatter is Control Alt L in case of Android Studio. For that, we use a shortcut called Control Alt and L that helps you to automatically format your code into much more readable format. So this comma helps your auto formatter to understand that where you should give the spacing and stuff. So far you have done that. Now you got to make sure that this particular piece of code runs. To ask your Flutter SDK to run your application, you make use of a keyword called run app. Okay, so this run app keyword ask your Flutter SDK to run your application, and here you pass the widget. Okay, the widget which you want to run. Okay, so now I have passed this widget. Now our application is complete. And I got to tell you another shorthand thing. In your main function, whatever the function may be, if inside all you're doing is just calling one function, okay, in this case in the main function all I have done is calling a function called run app. Okay, so if in this case there is another way of writing this, okay, in single line, what you could do is you could make use of equal to and bracket symbol and run this straight away in single line. This also means the same. Okay, what we have done is we are saying the Flutter SDK that this particular function has only this work. So this is shorthand way of writing this. So now when you run this application, now you could see that this application is displaying hello world, the text here, but it looks really ugly. Okay, so like I said, the material app widget provides you the base layout. So this is a basic thing that I wish to create right now. In the very next episode, we will be looking how to create this code bit more elegant, okay, in a decent looking fashion. So stay tuned.